As the president is weighing this critical decision, what we're seeing on the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue, there are two members of Congress. They are on opposite ends of the political spectrum, to be sure, but they are joining forces tonight in an attempt to force the president to get approval from Congress before he could launch any strikes, should he decide to do so, against Iran. One of the members leading that effort is my source tonight, Congressman Ro Khanna. And Congressman, it's great to have you here. I do think there is a question of whether or not you actually believe and think that this war powers resolution is ultimately going to get a vote in the House.
Well, it deserves a vote. The Speaker needs to bring a vote on any war powers resolution, and they can vote it down, but certainly every member of Congress should say whether they support us going into Iran and having strikes which could start another Middle East war.
Last night, Senator Tim Sheehy, he's a Republican, told me he doesn't think that the president needs congressional approval in order to launch an offensive strike on Iran. Why do you think he's wrong?
If we launch a strike on Fordow, it's inevitable that Iran will retaliate. All of the experts are saying that they may retaliate against troops in Iraq. They may retaliate against other American assets. They may engage in counterterrorism. If they retaliate, we will have to, of course, hit back. We're not going to allow Iran to hit our troops and not hit back. And that is going to draw us into a war with Iran. I'm opposed to that. I think the American people, at the very least, want their members of Congress to vote whether we want another war in the Middle East after what they've seen with the war in Iraq.
You know, Senator Schumer, the leader of the Democrats over in the Senate, from what I've seen so far, has not committed to voting for a similar resolution to yours that is being floated around the Senate. He said today to NBC that Congress would not hesitate to exercise its authority if needed. What do you make of that position?
It was very disappointing. His statement made no sense. One of the things we need to do as a Democratic Party is speak plainly, and this party should stand up against Donald Trump going and invading Iran. Frankly, Tucker Carlson, Steve Bannon, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and people on the right have been stronger voices than Senator Schumer. Now, he's the one who cheerled us into the war in Iraq, so he doesn't have much credibility on these issues. And I would like the Democratic leadership to support Bernie Sanders and Tim Kaine and say we are not going into Iran in the House for us to have this vote with Massie and me. The American people are sick of this. It's one of the reasons Donald Trump won, when he called out Jeb Bush and he said to Jeb Bush, you're not willing to say the Iraq war is a mistake. This is an opportunity for the Democratic Party to be the anti-war party again.
So are you saying that you're in agreement with Steve Bannon, Tucker Carlson, and Marjorie Taylor Greene?
On this issue, absolutely. I mean, they are talking to ordinary Americans who are saying, you know, let's build our industry here. Let's pour our money here. We spent 10% of the federal debt, $36 trillion, is because of the Iraq war. It was the biggest foreign policy blunder of the 21st century. It set America back in so many ways. And you've got young people wondering, are they going to be called up to serve in a war against Iran? None of the ordinary Americans want this, and they certainly want Congress to speak out. And I think this is not a partisan issue. This is an issue of, are you for peace abroad and building jobs at home, or are you for more overseas interventions? And the one thing I can tell you is the American people want Congress to have a vote on this.
Now, we'll see if that happens. It doesn't seem likely at this moment, but Congressman Ro Khanna, keep us updated on your efforts, and thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Also here are my my White House insider, CNN's Jeff Zeleny, Shelby Talcott of Semaphore, and also retired Air Force Colonel and CNN military analyst Cedric Leighton. And Colonel, you know, one thing that has been a big question, even at the White House tonight, apparently based on what we're hearing from Barack Ravid over at Axios, is whether or not, should the president make this decision, and the U.S. is going to strike Fordow, is it going to work? Do we know? I mean, obviously they've run these plans, they've looked at this, but do we know if it would be successful?
We don't, Caitlin, and that's one of the things. This particular weapon, the GBU-57 that they're talking about using, basically the MOP, the massive ordnance penetrator, nobody has tested it in combat. They've tested it in test conditions, but it has never, ever been used in combat.
It's never been used in combat before?
Never been used in combat before. So as a result of that, Caitlin, we don't really know if it will work. In testing, it has been successful. It has been a weapon that has been has met all the parameters of the testing requirements and has met the requirements that built the system, but it has never been used in combat.
Shelby, the president was pretty evasive today when he was being asked, what is his timeline here? His language seemed slightly different based on what we'd heard the last 2 days in terms of just saying, the talks are not working. This is an option that we do have. What have you been hearing from White House officials about where they're standing on this right now?
Yeah, I think, what Trump had said earlier today is they have multiple options on the table, and they're sort of taking this very carefully because there's a lot that they have to consider. They have to consider, first and foremost, whether a quick attack will even be effective enough to sort of go in and go out. Donald Trump has made clear that he doesn't want to get into a prolonged war, so that's an aspect of this. I'm also told earlier today by a Pentagon official that one of the concerns that some people have is that we already have low critical munitions reserves. And so how would this sort of impact that already low reserves that we have, especially if the attack doesn't work and we end up having to stay there or get into a prolonged war? And so, I think that there are, from my understanding, they are planning for sort of multiple potential plans. And in an ideal world, Iran will come to the table. Donald Trump has said that. It doesn't seem clear that they're going to do that. But I think that part of this, this posturing that Donald Trump has had so publicly is trying to get Iran to come to the table, trying to sort of influence them to come to the table.
Yeah, and Jeff, obviously you have covered multiple presidents, and in terms of the way a U.S. president looks at the Middle East, especially this U.S. president, is weighing on the decision-making process here and what the aftermath and the known unknowns could look like.
There's no doubt. I mean, the whole specter of the Iraq War from 22 years ago, around this time actually, is hanging over all of this. I mean, President Trump certainly, it's really his rise in politics, speaking out against forever wars from his own party, very explicitly against Jeb Bush back in the 2016 campaign as a proxy for his brother, former President George W. Bush. But that is the question, the unintended consequence of this. I remember very well at that time when President Bush and people around him were saying this would be a very quick action, a quick war, as you do, Colonel, obviously. But the unintended consequences of this are the central question. And the assets in the region, so interesting. The president was just at one of the Air Force bases, one of the air bases, the Al Udeid Air Base outside of Doha.
Oh, yeah, you were there.
Just a month ago. I was there with him. He talked to the troops. So you have to wonder, is that also weighing on his mind? Some 40,000 American troops are in the region. So yes, if there is a strike, Iran almost certainly cannot reach the U.S. homeland, but they absolutely can reach the American assets in the region, and that is one of the bases. So you must be wondering what the president is thinking about that. But look, the unintended consequences of this are something that cannot be understated, and the aftermath. What's the end game here after a strike, should it happen?
Well, and that's why the intelligence is such a key question here in terms of what's different. And we've seen this moment now multiple times over the last few days about Tulsi Gabbard when she testified in March that, yes, they were enriching a lot of uranium, more, she said, than any other country that doesn't have a nuclear stockpile. But she still said their intelligence was that they were not building a nuclear weapon at this time. That was in March 2025. The president said today when we were in the Oval that he believed Iran was weeks away from having a nuclear weapon.
Well, it sounds like the president, Caitlin, talked to Bibi Netanyahu before he made a lot of these comments, and that really kind of represents the dichotomy. Now, it's very possible that the U.S. intelligence community is wrong in their assessment, that there is something about the Iranian program that we don't know from an intelligence perspective, and we should, keep that in mind. The other part of it, though, is that there are so many aspects that international organizations have mentioned, such as the IAEA, which said very specifically that there are elements that they uncovered at Fordo, the site that we're talking about, that indicate that the Iranians actually have enriched uranium to a higher level than they had previously admitted to.
Yeah, Shelby, what's your sense of the president's view of, we know he's skeptical of the intelligence community overall, but he had a pretty strong relationship with Director Gabbard before this. Now it seems, after he dismissed her when I asked about that on Air Force One the other day, that maybe it's not exactly what it was previously.
Well, I think, it has long been known that Donald Trump doesn't necessarily like when people come out publicly and sort of say something different from what he has been saying. And so this was a comment that didn't necessarily help what he has been saying and what he is saying now in recent days. I still think that he is close to her. You know, she was set to go on the Hill today. She canceled that because she had a White House appointment. So she's clearly involved in these conversations now. But certainly he was frustrated at those remarks that she had and the social media post where she had this kind of 3.5 minute long post about all of this.
Do you think, Jeff, that we could actually see Iranian officials at the White House? I mean, the president is kind of teasing this, not fully closing the door on it.
It would be very hard for me to imagine that. I mean, they're a country at war, obviously. What the colonel was just mentioning about Bibi Netanyahu, the prime minister, I mean, President Trump has been talking to him every day. Is Israel really going to allow that? I mean, how would that work? The country is under attack at the moment. So I would be very surprised if that was the case. I mean, perhaps less surprising if the vice president or secretary of state or Steve Witkoff would go to the region, but I cannot fathom them coming to the United States. It just doesn't seem like it fits in the timeline and the possibilities now. Even the president has said the time for that should have already happened.